Thank you for joining. Thank you for coming to another edition of the Leadership Standard. We are excited to have you. We're excited to have you here. Thank you all for coming. While I type the question, how to develop. This is what we're going to be talking about today. I'm typing it up in the pinned tweet. All right. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Azuka Negra. Thank you, Brishina. Thank you. All right. So that's gonna be the topic that is gonna be there. Well, thank you all for coming. Please, while we wait for we're waiting for the speaker to join us. He will be joining us shortly. Hopefully, he remembers that he's meant to be here. But anyways, I hope you all have been having a wonderful time, a wonderful day. You know, it's been a great sunny day here in California. Yes, we do have the speaker right now joining us, Jonathan Quarles. I can see that he has requested to join, and I will put him up immediately. For those who don't know, today's topic is how to develop clarity in achieving one's goals. Right now, and we should be having Mr. Jonathan joining us shortly. I hope you all can see clearly and everything is going well. Hey!
Hey, how's it going?
Going well, great man. How are you doing?
Oh man, blessed. I'm super excited about this conversation.
I am super excited myself. First of all, I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for honoring my invitation, my humble invitation. And I'm very excited to have you to talk about your book. For those who don't know, Mr. Jonathan is an author. And reading this book, well, I'm going to talk about it later. I don't want to jump the gun. I wanted to just jump the gun. But first of all, please kindly introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us who you are, you know, your story, your journey, and where you are right now, you know, in your personal life or in your
Sure. Yeah, I always like to say that I'm just a little country boy from Flint, Michigan. I say that in a very loving way, very specifically because I do come from very humble beginnings, and I think that's who I am as a person. And so I come with this sense of compassion, and I always like to present myself that I don't really look at myself to be too much as it is. You know, I have a very grounding family and friends that have always kept me grounded throughout the years. But yeah, born and raised in Flint, Michigan. From a professional standpoint, I think I consider myself to be a professional slasher, right? So a serial entrepreneur / angel investor / author / most importantly, a father. So that's who I am.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so I know that you have all these slashes going on, and you know it's obvious that the only way you can achieve more slashes in your name is because of the capacity that you have, you know, in ensuring that you maintain consistency and excellence in everything you're doing. So how do you do that? How do you maintain that energy? How do you keep getting the slashes on your name, still pursuing territories every single day? How do you do that?
It's a couple of things. I think one of the things is having a really dynamic team around me. I'm a big believer, like it's not about me. And quite honestly, there's no way possible I can be a successful slasher without the team that I have. And so I have a very diverse team of people, both men, women, old, young, different college background and things like that. But the core of it all is everyone that's on my team believes in the mission. And then we are very specific and strategic about making sure that where we have gaps, strength gaps, we make sure we fill that within the talent of our team. And then the other thing is, you know, I think it really is important for you to understand what your why is. For me, I'm motivated. The thing that I'm able to wake up, I get up at 5 a.m. every day. I go to sleep late at times, but I do believe that sleep is very important. And I talk about that very specifically in the book. But I understand what my why and my passion is. So to me, that's the thing that keeps me going. So I don't feel like I've worked a day in my life because I love what I'm doing. It's like I'm making impact. I'm making dollars while making change.
That's totally awesome. Because when I was reading your book, I wanted to ask you this, but you answered it in the book. But I'm going to still ask you for the audience. How old are you?
So I'm 38. I'll be 39 in March of this year. Yeah.
You'll be 39 in March.
Yeah.
I feel right while reading your book, I felt like you've lived multiple lives. I felt like when I was reading your book, up until I got to the point where I saw you were like, oh, as I'm writing this, I'm 38. I was like, no way, this guy is 38. I feel like you have so many multiple layers of life. So, but before I ask you about your book, so what would you say? I know that you say you have a strong team and you know your why. Would you say that in all of those things, what has been the things that has shaken you a little bit, even in your journey, that you say that you've not anticipated, but came up and I rocked your boat, and how did you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because as an entrepreneur, I get shaken all the time, and I think that's what I love so much about it is there's a new day, there's a new week every week. There's never like the same kind of consistent. Everything is working the way it's supposed to, but I think a lot of it has to do with this idea of how I've been able to kind of handle a lot of the situations like that is. One, a sense of mindfulness, being organized, being important about being very specific about the way I plan my days. I'm very intentional about what I do. When I wake up in the morning, I have a habit. My morning kind of ritual is I wake up, I stretch, I meditate, and then I visualize my day. So every second of the day, I literally have in my mind how I want it to go. So it's a sense of law of visualization is what it is. And then, there's things throughout the day that you just can't control. You just try your best to keep the right mindset. And when you need to kind of get centered again, I try to go back into my meditation mode, because there's a lot of days where I'm shaken and I'm, challenged. But again, having strong team and having people, a good circle around where you can kind of feed off and you can kind of talk to kind of release some of those things has always been good for me.
That's great. That's awesome. For those who are just joining us, I have I want to call you Superman for this broadcast. Superman Jonathan Quarles in the house, talking about his new book, Making Dollars While Making Change. I have some copies to give out. We're going to talk about that at the end of the show. So, so what inspired you to write this book? I want to dive into the book because I have a lot of questions about this. What inspired you to write this book?
Oh, wow, it's just a lot of different things. I think the biggest thing for me is I've always wanted to be a published author, all the way since I was probably maybe elementary, middle school, when I learned that I had a great uncle by the name of Dr. Benjamin Quarles, who's a great historian. He actually wrote the autobiography for Frederick Douglass.
Oh, wow.
He's a great historian around the Civil War period. He documented the Black experience during Civil War. And he passed away in the 90s. But I was like, one day I would love to be able to be. I mean, I come from good lineage, so one day I would love to write a book. But honestly, what really kind of focused a lot of my wanting and need to write this particular book was this idea that I wanted to create this universal entrepreneurship curriculum for K through 12 in public schools. And I started having conversations with school superintendents across the United States. And most of them would ask me these two basic questions. Did you go to school for writing curriculum? What makes you an expert? Have you written a book? Are you published? And I could say no to all those things. And so I said, well, I guess I just need to first start by writing a book. And the book has a lot of different components that will start off this curriculum. And then this gives me an opportunity to go into the schools and talk about some of the principles and the values and the interests. And then this hard curriculum for particular public schools, so that people can know that you don't have to be grown or you don't have to be in college in order to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurial mindset is something that starts when you're young. And so I have 3 girls. My oldest is 8, my youngest is 3. And they're very aware of what entrepreneurship is. They're very aware of what financial literacy is. They're very aware of a lot of the principles that I'm talking about in the book, because just as they learn English and they're learning Spanish and they're learning French, I'm teaching them this is how you should be thinking, whether you want to be an entrepreneur or not.
Hey man, it's awesome stuff. I grew up in Nigeria. I grew up in Africa.
Sure.
And I know when I read in your book, you talked about a friend of yours, Ade, who was Nigerian, who sort of like inspired you to travel. Was that your first trip outside of the United States?
That was my first trip, yes.
And and that's why I want to have this conversation with you, because I feel like we've crossed paths in several ways.
Yeah.
But because I've been to Israel too.
Okay.
I was in Israel in 2019 myself, and you talked about your trip to Israel and how it changed you and your Jewish community that you have. I want to ask you, in terms of your journey, how important is it for people to get to know more about other cultures, and as well as even in terms of building wealth, because how important is that? Just
I tell you that's everything. And for me, I didn't really understand. I think in order to have a point of view and a perspective, it's so important for you to put yourself in shoes of others. I call it culture economics, right? So I travel to learn. So that's what I'm teaching my daughters. We don't travel just so we can be tourists. We travel so that we can learn, and we embed ourselves within the culture, right? We eat the food that the people there, the culture, the locals eat. We try to provide this kind of space for the kids where they actually can learn. So it's one thing to go to Paris and to see Eiffel Towers and to go to all of the museums, but there's another thing to really understand those things, that the things that's not in the tourist guide, but really understand how the people live, what's important to them, their social norms, their social cues and protocol. That is something that's important. And for me, it's something I'm really committed to, because one day I'm going to be a U.S. ambassador. And so I like to put that in the universe. And as a U.S. ambassador, one of the things is diplomacy is so important. So for me, I've traveled to over 50 countries now. But I want to travel more because I know I'm not going the route of a foreign officer, but I have experiences of working through fellowships and things like that, which I mentioned in the book, where I want to make sure that when I'm doing this, I'm not just a political appointee that is just a person that was able to raise capital, but I want to be able to say that I know I can speak the language, that I understand the culture because I've done business there, I've lived there, I've worked there. That's what I call culture economics. Before we can talk business, I have to trust you, you have to trust me. And that's what I'm doing with one of my businesses, the BTL Group, which is an international business development consulting practice.
That's awesome. So now for those who are just joining us, you see the reason why I had to bring this man on the show. I did it more for myself than you guys, to be honest. Now I could see from your foundation, I could tell you had a strong foundation, strong grammar. You know, you talked about your grandma in the book. You talked about your father who was, you know, taking care of the funeral home. Talked about your mom and all of those great things. Now, not everybody is blessed to have a strong family. Not everybody has a strong foundation. What do you say to those people who are like lost in this world? You know, maybe they gave birth to them under the streets, or, you know, in prisons, or what do you say to those people? How do they get a leg up? You know, for someone like you who already has that foundation, that solid foundation, that's building on that foundation. How do they build on that? What do you tell them?
So let me first say, I do count it as a true blessing to be able to have a mother and a father in the house growing up in Flint, Michigan. That was my saving grace. I have a lot of friends that I rode with growing up that didn't know who their fathers were. And so for me, the reason why I wasn't involved in any illegal activity growing up was because I couldn't. My dad was involved. When I did my launch, I had my mother and my father where I did a kind of a conversation with them. But my dad's a big guy. My dad's like 6'5". You know, at the time he was maybe 250. So he's a big dude. So I was scared of my father. But my dad was very involved in our lives. My mom was also. But what I would say is this: I think that there's a difference between family and relatives, right? Relatives are the people that you're blood and you're related to, and you can't choose those. You can't choose who you're related to. But it's something about family. I have friends. I have my boys that I consider family that are not blood, but they're family. And so I think it's important to, you know, this idea, my dad would always say that you got to control your space and control your circle. So we do have a choice of who we surround ourselves with, who we allow to be in our lives. And with that in mind, you want to be with people that elevates you, that inspires you, that provides reciprocity, so that when you're depositing in them, they're actually providing deposit within yourself. But you can choose who you actually consider to be your to be your family. And I think, you know, we may not be able to choose our parents. We can't choose our grandparents, our uncles, and our aunts, but we can choose who we allow in our circle. And you are a reflection of who you hang around and who's your family.
Totally. I can see your beautiful daughter on the background. So now looking back at your journey, I also see that you started entrepreneurship at such a young age, and awesome. It's not everybody who thinks like that, you know. And I always, whenever I'm doing this show, Leadership Standard, you know, for those who don't know, the Leadership Standard is focused on getting young people, young leaders into. I'm trying to like get into the minds of young people who lead. I see exactly why they think the way they think. You know, I want to promote. I want to highlight them. It's still a startup. We're still growing, and that's the reason why I'm having, you know, people like you. But I want to understand, why did you think your mind was working the way it was working at that young age to be like, I want to own my own businesses? You know, I want to make my own money. I want to be self-sufficient. I just don't want to I don't want to just depend on my mom or my dad to give me pocket money every single day. Why do you think your mind was thinking like that?
Well, I had no choice. Well, first of all, my mom and my dad couldn't afford to give me just extra pocket money. So we come from very humble beginnings, and I'm very appreciative of that, because that made me the kind of tenacity and the perseverance that I have today was because of that. And so I had no choice. I realized that I wanted to create a situation that would help improve my parents, and then also one day have kids to improve their situation. So for me, I realized that being an owner and being able to dictate the destiny, my destiny, was the only way I can do it. I couldn't work for anyone else. So my dad would tell us at a very young age is that, my dad was one of those people that always preached entrepreneurship. He tried a few times, wasn't too successful, and didn't have all the tools. My dad never met his father until he was, I think, 17 years old. So my dad always had amazing work ethic. And my dad's one of those people that what he says is golden. He doesn't, when he says he's going to do something, it's going to get done. And so I learned a lot of those principles and values. And then on my mother is taught, nurturing. It was just my mother and my father was the perfect situation for me. But then I realized that I wanted to do something to say thank you for them. And so I remember telling my father, I said, Dad, I want to actually buy you a house. I want to buy you a car. I'm going to be successful and things like that. And my dad was like, I don't want any of that stuff. What I want you to do is pay it forward. I want you to start a foundation in my name, in his name, which I did. And with that foundation, I want you to give scholarships to people that are C students in areas that are low income areas that were in the same situation you were in, to provide them with technical assistance, provide them with opportunity for whether it's college, vocational school, or to be an entrepreneur. And so for me, that's all my father asked for. And to me, I want to now be able to create the first generation of a legacy of wealth building for my kids. I want my grandchildren to be able to be living off of what I've been able to accomplish now. And I may not see it in my lifetime, but I think it's so important that we had goals. And that was the thing that motivated me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I could tell from the way you speak that you're very faith-based. And I know reading your book, you said like, you are, you pretty much grew up in a Christian background, but you're into like you believe in the ancestors. You learned a lot of religion. You're not really like picking one side. Like I'm a Christian. Where do you think your faith, this solid faith comes from? Is it just I don't know, but where do you think your faith comes from?
Yeah.
What is that about?
So I would say that I was raised, my dad's a deacon in the church still today. My mom's a Sunday school teacher. So I was raised in the church, and I'm grateful for that foundation. I think that's another thing that kept me balanced. While I went out in the world, I at least had a good foundation from loving parents. I'm no longer religious anymore. I'm very spiritual. And what I understand is that when you really study our African culture, all of our ancestors were very spiritually conscious, right? Religion was a practice, and that's a whole nother thing. But I don't knock any other religion. One of the things that I learned when I went to Israel in 2016, that's when I started really questioning what I really believed and what I was told. And so for me, I think this idea of not wanting to believe, but to know. I think that there's enough evidence in the world that shows a lot of different things, and science is actually real. And science and history shows us that there's things that you can know, there's things you can believe. But what I do in particular with myself and even with my daughters is that I expose them to all the religion. So I didn't have a choice growing up. It was Christian. And if you're not a Christian, like everything else is like the wrong religion. And I just never understood that. I was a very curious kid. I would always ask questions to my parents and even to my pastors, like, well, what makes our religion better than the other? And then why is it that other religions kill in the name of their God? Isn't there just one God? So I would ask these questions, and I do believe in God. I do believe that there's one God. I do believe that there's beauty in all religion and even in all beliefs, as if like Buddhism. I'm a big fan of Buddhism. And so with that, that's not a religion. It's a way of life. It's a mindset. And so what I do is I expose my kids to all of that and allow them to make their own decisions. And I tell you, when I told my parents that, they almost lost their mind, because they're like, oh no, and it's I think it's
like you're talking about all this new age stuff.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's not new age. That's what it used to be. So we're going back to antiquity, where, the most knowledgeable people that I know, or at least that I've read about, are people that look like us, that come from the continent where everybody was originated from. And so with that in mind, I want my kids, I can't tell my kids I want them to be an independent thinker and have an analyst, or to be able to be analytical when I'm telling them how to think. And so be able to create that unconditional love for my kids, to allow them to make mistakes, allow them to learn so they can ask questions. And a lot of stuff I don't know, I'll have them to go out and search and have their own journey of education. And I think that's what hopefully most parents are looking and exposing their kids to, because we know a lot of stuff, but a lot of times we're socially conditioned when we're kids.
That's amazing that you say that, because and I could tell Azuka Negra production, she's loving all your conversations. You know, she's going
Yeah, I
back to
see
your
that.
roots. And she I don't know who I'm imagining it's a she, but the person was like, as you say that they thought you were 27. So you have to give us your skin recipe after this show, and you know,
Black
how
don't crack.
do you stay this young? Tell people, how do you maintain a youthful face or a youthful mind, or tell people, because most people don't know.
Well, black don't crack, and it's a beautiful thing to have. It's a beautiful thing to have that melanin, you know. But I'll say this: you look at my mom, you look at my dad. My mom doesn't look like her age. I mean, even my grandmother who passed away, Lizzie, who I talk about in the book, she was, I mean, like, I didn't have a wrinkle in her skin. But then I also do a lot of self-care also. I mean, I drink a gallon of water every day. I get sleep at night. You know, I do get facials. You know, I clean my face every day. I moisturize in the morning and night. You know, some things you can be doing to kind of help keep your skin and the elasticity and things like that of your skin. And overall, you know, to me, like, I want to look young forever. Like, I want to grow youthfully. And so, you know, I exercise, I sit in the steam room, you know, I do all of these things that to help overall help your body, because when your body is right, when your mind is right, you know, you can function and be at peak performance.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, talking about a business-oriented mind that you had, how does one develop a business-oriented mind? Let's say, you know, they don't have a background like you, you know, a foundation like you. What would you tell someone? I want to make money, but I just don't understand how to leave a job, or I just don't understand where to start from. What would you say? What would you advise the first things to do? Steps, you know, kind of.
Well, I mean, a shameless plug, I would say grab the book, Making Dollars While Making Change.
Exactly. Making Dollars, it's sold on Amazon right now, guys. Sold on Amazon right now. Check it out. Believe me, it's going to be worth your time. I read this book in a go. That's how much I loved it.
And that's, to me, that was the whole goal. And I'll answer your question. That was the whole goal. Is like, I wanted to write a book that when you open it up, you don't want to put it down and you just read it in one go. And most people tell me that, like, most people who've read it is like, yo, I read it literally in one day. I read it as soon as I got it. And I was like, that's the whole purpose. I don't want it to be another task or another daunting, you know, something you got to like get a dictionary and a thesaurus to be able to understand. But it's a pretty easy read. And again, this was the first of many. I'm actually working on my second book right now.
Hey, why not?
Yeah. but what I would say, give me the question one more time. I'm gonna make sure I answer.
Yeah, a business-oriented mind. How does one develop a business-oriented mind?
So what I always say that, you know, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, how I define it as essentially is being a problem solver, right? Being able to solve a problem and being value driven in that, and then something that somebody will want to pay for. So I have friends that say either I'm not a business mind, or I'm not a business person, or I'm not a political person. I hear that all the time. But, you know, if you know how to solve problems, you're a business person. You just got to figure out how to monetize it, how to be able to get it so that people will want to pay for it. Something that you can do that no one else can do, or something you can do better that people will want to pay for because it's something that they need. And so as a kid, I used to just do that all the time. I mean, I've had paper routes, I've had a printing company, I've had t-shirt companies. So let me give you an example of a problem in solving when I was in elementary. So I went to school where there was vending machines there. You could only use the vending machines like before school and then right after school. And so for me, you know, I would hear Andy and myself, I'm like, I would want to like have candy and chips throughout the day. And people were like, man, we got to wait till after school to do it. So as a problem solver, I said, okay, I can go to Sam's Club and pick up like the candy that people actually like, chips that people like, and then I can actually sell it. And so that's what I would do. I would sell it in my book bag. I would have it in my locker. And so like in between classes, people would come to my locker and we'll be selling candy. So I would do that. I'll sell it out my trunk. And I mean, I was making, I think like $200 or $300 a month in profit in elementary. And just doing that one thing. And I would go to Sam's and get it for nothing and then put a margin on it, and just, it's what we called it growing up, flipping. You know, you flip. And so I mean, it's just being a problem solver, figuring out what is it that what kind of problem is so bad that people are willing to pay for it. And then and that's, to me, that's what, when it comes to it. And then obviously there's a lot of stuff with the internet. I mean, there's the amazing thing with internet now is that you don't have an excuse to like not know.
Right.
We now have direct to consumer. I don't need to like work out and have a political arrangement with the media company. I can just go on Instagram Live and I can have and create an audience where I can produce and provide content, and I don't even have to pay for it. This is free for us. And so we just have to, I think that this new paradigm that we have to start shifting to now that COVID-19, I look at it as a new normal, which is a blessing for those individuals that understand how, as an entrepreneur like myself, who love these kind of challenges. I think my businesses have thrived better during the pandemic than anything else, because that's where my creativity came. And that's where I stayed up late at night working on these ventures and writing books. And I have another idea of a second book and things like that. I even have a docuseries that I was about to start writing in partnership with a filmmaker. And then I had to take a break because I wanted to make sure I focus on getting the book out. So,
hey man, whatever you're working on, just take me along, man.
Okay. I want to do some stuff with you in Africa. I want to definitely talk to you about that.
Oh, for sure, man. Definitely, man. You know, when we have just after the show, we'll talk about it. So let me ask this question, and we're almost rounding up, this conversation. I know that one of the things you said about having a business mind is creating a problem. But one thing I also learned from what you said is, you must be willing not to be ashamed. When to be a problem solver, you must not care what people say. What do you say to those people who are always caught up on, oh, I didn't get this amount of likes on my post, or I didn't get this amount of reaction on what I wanted to do, or maybe I didn't get this kind of feedback. Maybe I'm not good at this because my grandma didn't like my post, or my ex didn't put. What do you say to those kind of people who are always caught up on what other people think about the ideas of the product?
So I think that our biggest competitor, our biggest enemy is ourselves. And I talk about that specifically in the book, where I talk about just overall mindfulness. For me, I never thought I was a great writer. I never thought that I had content that people would even be interested in reading. But the reality is, once I really got in and I become centered amongst myself and realize what is my strengths, what are my weaknesses, the things that I'm not good at, I'm okay with. I just bring on other people. I'll either hire or bring on or collaborate with other folks that can do it. I realize that I'm just one person and I have a lot of flaws. There's some things, there are very few things that I can do well, and I just focus on that. But what I would tell people is really go within and really figure out what is it that's your strength. What is the things, this is how I kind of classify, it's called, this is how I define your passion. What is that thing, what is that skill set that you have that is so unique that you think you can do it better than anyone else? And then what is the thing that you're really passionate about? That intersection between those two things is what I consider to be your passion. And that's the thing you should be focusing on. Understanding what your why is. Mm-hmm. If you understand what your why and your passion is, it doesn't matter what people think, because again, it goes back to having your right circle. I see my boy Burton Brown was on. I don't know if he's still on, but Burton Brown is one of my boys I've known since I was, I think, 8 or 9. We were in karate together. He's a really good friend of mine now. He's family to me. And so I know that when I need someone to hold me accountable, somebody who I respect, because I know that they are coming in a loving place. So they will check me when I'm out of line and when I feel like I'm, like my mama say, smelling myself. I have friends that keeps me grounded, that keeps me accountable. When I say I'm going to do something, they do it. When I was writing this book, I started writing this book two or 3 years ago. And I had a friend, Tamira Chapman, who basically, I told her, I said, I'm writing this book. And she was like, oh, cool. The year went by, I didn't finish the book. I didn't even actually start writing it, actually. And so that next year, when I told her, I said, I'm about to write the book this year. She was like, nah, Jonathan, you're on some BS right now. You said you were going to do that last year. I'm going to hold you accountable. You need to keep me updated where you are. Tell me every chapter when it's completed. And for me, I didn't want to let her down. So to me, that's family. And having people around like that, it doesn't matter how many likes you get. I don't want to even have a big following on here, because for me, I use this not for someone to like me, because I'm very self-assured. I have a good sense of self. And again, I have people that love me, that supports my highest self. And that's all that matters to me. Even if it's only 3 people, that's all I need. So.
I love that, man. I want to ask you this question before I forget. What came up with the name, the title? I know you probably have asked, so many people might have asked you this question a lot, but what's up with the name?
So it's this idea that my dad always told me that he wants us to be successful in business. And, so you want to be able to do that so you can get out of poverty. That was one. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, he would always say, to much is given, much is expected. So it behooves you to be a very successful person. But with that being said, you now have to create more impact in the community, in your family, than ever before, because you have a huge responsibility. And I think the great philosopher Jay-Z said it best: I can't help the poor if I'm one of them. Mm-hmm. And so this idea of making dollars while making change, leading with purpose and principle and value, money's going to be there. You're going to be successful. You're going to be profitable. But if you're leading in the wrong, if you're starting off with the wrong values, or if you're starting off not understanding what the whole purpose is that people will want to buy and principles, it's not going to do well. So making dollars while making change is just something that I freestyle a lot, and I'm not,
love that.
but I was freestyling, and I was playing with
Making
words.
dollars while making change.
Yeah. So making dollars while making change. First, it was like making dollars while making sense. And I think making change was better. Well, to me, because sense and change was more so this idea of this intersection between social impact and business. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. And before we go, before I ask you for your final words, what would you say? Now, this is Black History Month. I know we're celebrating Black history, and you know there's a lot of history that Black people have, but also a lot of challenges. And you know, it's like when you're trying to help your own community, it seems like you're faced with even a lot of clashback, or you know, what would you say has been your biggest challenge dealing with, you know, the Black community, African community? What would you say, even when you travel to Africa? What would you say? What would you say you see? Because there's a, you know, I'm from Africa, and I'm going to tell you, you know, it's worse. Sometimes, you know, what's going on with the leadership in Africa is terrible.
Sure.
You know, so what would you say needs to be done? And you, as an ambassador of good culture, of good vibes, what would you say needs to be done?
So I said maybe three things. But first, let me say it's Black History all year long. We got to change that mindset, because we are beautiful and amazing people. We created civilization, human civilization, and so we celebrate Black folks. I celebrate Black folks and Black things and Black businesses all year long. Make that a whole. That needs to be our mantra. So that's one. I think there's one is exposure. For a lot of the younger people, y'all probably don't remember, but when I was growing up, we had like our cameras had exposed. We had like the film that you had to go take to like CVS or Rite Aid to like get it exposed, but it was Kodak film. And Kodak film, I think, being Black in America and being Black in the world, I believe a lot of times we're just similar to Kodak film in the sense where sometimes all we need is just a little bit of exposure. We need a little bit of exposure. And so for me, growing up in Flint, you know, I was fortunate to be exposed and to be able to do things like travel over 50 countries. But this was after I left Flint to go to college. But it was because of those exposures where I was able to realize that, wow, I thought I was poor until I went to third world countries and was like, wow, like I really wasn't poor. And so my perspective changed. And so my sensitivity and my ability to be able to relate to, let's say, walk with kings and queens and not lose a common touch. If the poem says that, that's so important, is to be able to, one, expose young people and even older people to a variety of things that's outside of their culture. I think that's one thing. I think the second thing is, I would say the second thing is just travel. You know, I talk about, I learned through traveling, and for me, a lot of the trends that I've created and me actually being able to pivot my businesses is because of my traveling and experiencing how people in Asia think, how people in South America think, how people in Africa think. That opportunity to travel to learn is just something that really helped to accelerate my business acumen as well as just me as a person holistically. And then the last part, obviously, is access to capital. That's always been a challenge for our community. All that being said, I think the book kind of rounds out everything to basically say that, you know, we talk about investing in a book, we talk about networking, we talk about all of these principles that's going to help you to be a better person, one, and then be better change maker in the world. But I want us to start with that, but ultimately start with this curriculum. The book is the start to be able to like create this curriculum. So I talked to you about the challenges. Now for me, is nothing. I can tell you all day about the challenges, but what I want to do about it, what I'm doing about it, is creating a curriculum that I'm looking to put in all the schools throughout the United States first, and then in the world. That's what we're doing. That's what the whole purpose of the book is.
Awesome, man. Awesome. The Leadership Standard supports you. The Leadership Standard prays for you. The Leadership Standard wants you to win. We're very excited to have you on our show today. Thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan. I can see a Dr. Jonathan coming up in that name very soon. It's going to be an honorary one. It's going to definitely be an honorary one.
I definitely appreciate the opportunity of sharing. This is definitely a humbling experience for me. I don't take any of this stuff for granted, and particularly because you're my brother. So I'm always supporting people that look like me first and foremost. And then lastly, the book is available wherever books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Making Dollars While Making Change. Go get yours.
Go get yours. Thank you, sir. If you want to stay on, you can still stay on. I'm going to still talk about the free copies we have to give, you know, and how we're going to do that. But if you want to go, I know you have a lot of things that you got to do, and we support that. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you. And for everyone who has joined us, if you want to get a copy of this book, please send us a private message on Instagram and tell us what you learned from today's topic. It has to be like, it's going to be like an essay. No, not really an essay, don't mind me. But what are the key points that you learned? And also, please follow Dr. Jonathan Quarles on Instagram. I believe his name is Jonathan Quarles on Instagram.
Yeah.
Please follow him on Instagram. Check out his website. Support what he's doing. If we have 4 Jonathan Quarles in the world, believe me, the world will be a better place. I'm very sure of that. So please support him, and yeah, send me a message on Instagram why you think you want to get a copy of this book, and we'll be sending it to you. We just need to get your address and all of that, and we'll ship it over to you. Likewise, follow the Leadership Standard on what's it called, on YouTube. Follow the Leadership Standard on YouTube so that we grow together. Yeah. I believe Mr. Jonathan is putting his website there, jonathanquarles.com. So please check it out. Thank you for everyone for coming. Thank you, Mr. Jonathan, for coming. And my best love to Stella. Stella, you know, you're wonderful, Stella. You know, send my love to her. I really appreciate that back and forth. And please keep me posted in any things you're doing. I'm based here in California for now, but of course I'm always willing to you know, to move, travel if the need arises and if it's possible. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
And stay well.
You
Thank
too,
you.
brother. All right, peace out.
Peace out.